Hello, internet, everybody out there not hiding under a blanket.
Where's my blanket?
every
I
time
need
I,
it.
yeah, right. Every time I see our intro, I just want to stand, man, strike that hero pose. Like every time I hear it, just makes me feel epic.
So what are
Alrighty,
we?
well,
What are
yeah,
we? The SCU, the Silverline Cinematic Universe.
that's right, Roland. That needs to happen. Let's make that happen. Alrighty, Brent. We're
Gentlemen,
just getting started, sir. I was just announcing. I'm Jose Fuentes. I'm a Slinger of Inks. Uh, Hosting tonight.
and host.
Uh, Tim, Tim has been called away for work, and I believe Ron is still on vacation, unplugged from everything, and that leaves us. Got my man David Rios over here. Dave, say hi.
Hi, howdy ho.
And Brent,
Good morning.
oh, good morning. Not yet. Not yet, buddy.
Very soon.
All righty. Tonight's topic that we're talking about, which I think is going to be a fun one, and it is, why does horror parody sell? And if you don't know what horror parody is basically any horror genre that allows for some levity. So it could just be a horror with a little bit of lightness into it, or it could be like a mix between horror and comedy. And but there's always like, it's never just like guts and gore and slash. Like, there's always a little bit of something else in there. I feel. I do like horror stuff. I grew up watching horror movies. I grew up reading the old school Conan magazine comic books that my dad used to hide under his bed, and those are leaning more towards fantasy, but there's definitely a horror element to those a little bit because, I mean, when you're like 7 years old, those monsters in there are a little scary.
Mm.
So, are you too familiar with like a horror parody, horror genre of comic books? Is it something that is in your, what you enjoy doing, what you enjoy reading?
I can't think of anything like that I've ever read.
Oh man, I got a couple options for you to write down.
All right, and I will. Tell me what you got.
Hello, Dave. What about you?
um, I didn't fall a lot into the standard horror genre, so the parodies didn't hit me as much. But you, I mean, you think a lot of comics and stuff. I mean, you have a lot of the things that came over from other mediums. If you kind of think about it, Scooby Doo is one of your prime examples of it right there.
Absolutely.
Um, but as far as the topic goes, I think that a big reason why the um, the horror parodies are so big is because the horror genre in general is so big. I mean,
It absolutely is.
so many people love that, and you get a lot of like creators um, going and coming up. This is the time of year, so you get a lot of the Halloween themed books and stuff like that just kind of tap into that horror thing. And it depends on how campy they want to be in, or not. But I even look at, it's not just the Halloween horror type ones. The parody add on top of the love of horror books, the parodies, whether it be Christmas time parodies, Halloween parodies, just scary horror in general parodies, not tied to a particular time frame. I think are just people love that too. So you kind of get a double stack there from the different genres. So
Well, You mentioned Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo happens to be on my list. Only in that there was it a few years ago, 4 years ago, I want to say, they came out with a new Scooby-Doo comic book, and it very much followed into that horror parody theme because yes, you had Scooby-Doo. They kind of modernized them a little bit. Shaggy was more of a like a I don't want to say beatnik. That's like an old 60s term, but he was very much the the goatee bohemian. That's closer to what I'm thinking, right? Goatee, glasses, like haircut, very much the style of the time, and a virus got out and it was affected everybody except for Scooby Doo. And then the way Scooby Doo talked in that comic was he had this like get up that was attached to him, almost like an ocular thing, and it would pull up like light images of pictures of what his thoughts were.
I think was that that was an image book, wasn't it?
I think so. I'm not sure off the top of my hand, but I
I do.
started collecting the floppies for him, but then it kind of got away from me, so I had to start collecting the trades.
Mm.
Which
Yeah,
I do trades, but I prefer floppies.
I do remember seeing that, and at least for the first issues, the artwork and it was pretty good too.
It was
really, really good.
Throughout the entire, and a lot of the stuff happened in it. Like you're like, oh, right? And I'm not gonna give it away because that is definitely one that you need to find and check out because it is worth the read. Pop says, "Hey yo, hi Pops, how you doing?" Also, let me go in and give a couple examples and whatnot. I think I told Dave in the green room, so to speak. The Goon. There's a more current run on the Goon, which if you've ever read the Goon, even if you haven't read the Goon, it is a phenomenal comic. Like it uses like gray tones. There's no color in it that I've seen. There's no color in it. It's all gray tone, and it's a beautiful, like just every issue is beautiful. But the more recent one that I was looking into, it followed a lot of like horror genre. Like right out the gate, you had vampires. You know what I mean? Dealing with like, going after vampires and just if you ever read the book, like there's a very period piece style, like almost set. I want to say the 20s, but it's probably the wrong time period. I think every time
about right.
Look at it, I think Newsies because they're wearing like the Newsy hats and stuff like that, and bowlers and everything. So it really like gives me that feel. But like, it's not always like heavy, like blood, gore, slash, and whatnot. There's like I said, there's comedic levity in just the artwork alone, as opposed or including the story and dialogue along the way. So Goon, Brent, if you haven't read it, check out Goon. It's
I'm
awesome.
Googling it right now. Dark Horse.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw it. I actually had never picked it up, but I've seen it. I saw the books. I also saw when I went to San Diego Comic-Con, I saw the booth.
Yes.
The creators is huge, but I hadn't picked it up. It seemed interesting. I just didn't know if I wanted to go that direction or not. But maybe.
I think I picked up and read my first I think it was a trade. I don't know. I don't remember. I know I have a couple issues myself, but I also know I read some of them when I was in art school. You know what I mean? And so I haven't picked any up since, but like I know from that it was cool. Just like I wanted to dissect it because anytime I see like ink washes or gray tones and whatnot, I want to know how they did it. How did they get their colors? How did they gauge their values to to create that depth and texture from using gray tones or ink wash, which I thoroughly enjoy. I want to incorporate more into the pencils and inks that I do. I just need to jump on it and do it. All right, another one, which I didn't know this comic fell into the horror parody genre, but I can see it. Swamp Thing. Not the one there's another storyline coming out that's supposed to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it. But like the OG, like older version of Swamp Thing, definitely followed a horror parody theme, like fell into the genre. Now those I haven't read. I've seen a lot of artwork for it, but I have not read Swamp Thing. And my friend Cody's gonna beat me next time I see him for saying that. But and taking it back a little further, there's a lot of the EC comics from back in the day. If anybody remembers the old EC comics, there's a lot of them, but there was the Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, Epitaph from the Abyss, and the Haunt of Fear. And those always had a horror macabre. Nobody ever wins. It's like reading that is like reading or trying to play Call of Cthulhu. Nobody ever wins in the end of that game. And I feel nobody ever wins in like the Tales from the Crypt, which if some of us that are old enough to know, not you guys, just me. But Tales from the Crypt became a TV show. I think HBO put it out for like a while, and it was actually a comic, or not comic. Sorry, it was actually a cartoon. Did you know that? It was a cartoon.
I don't think
Saturday morning cartoon.
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt.
Did it have like
hanging out on the beach
from breakfast cereals for kids or anything like that? Or?
I don't even know, but yeah, I didn't even remember that it was a thing until I went to this one of our local pizza places, and they like to stream old classic cartoons and whatnot, and it popped up, and I'm like, was that a thing? And I was talking to one of the owners who was owners who was an older guy, and he said, yeah, like it used to be on TV and everything. I was like, that's
wow, great. Look at that.
Well, the series, actually, all of those series that you mentioned are still they're being produced today.
Are they being reproduced, or are new stories being produced?
I haven't read them. I just know that I help my friend put them out every week.
Okay.
For his comic shop, but Tales from the Crypt, definitely all different EC comics labeled under the EC banner,
right?
Are coming out. So those are
that's cool.
Still coming out. A lot of the old feel, the old artwork and everything. So they might be reprints of them, but
and the artwork was phenomenal. Like for the time period, like, and I don't mean that in any way, shape, bad. Like it is, if you're a budding artist and you want to learn, just read comics that are going to help you, like you start noticing some of the different techniques and whatnot. Some of the old, like a lot of the old EC comic pages and whatnot, a lot of spot blacks, a lot of like heavy like spot lighting. And so they used a lot of, the black to frame to make figures pop out, to give it that like very spooky, lighting effect, a lot of brushwork, a lot of, a lot of feathering. Just it's phenomenal just to sit there as an artist, and like it's one thing to know some oh yeah, you can do this and you can do that and you do this, but like to actually like look at the big pages and like see, oh wow, they put that to work, they did that, they added that, like that's a technique I'm not just learning because I'm watching tutorials or anything like that. Like it was put to practical use. And so from an artistic point of view, it is just beauty on paper, I'm telling you. Another one, and I don't know if you guys have read this. I have, because it was just seemed weird to me and I had to pick it up. Afterlife with Archie. So Archie, for those, nobody's older than me. So for me, Archie, old school, like high school kid comic strip and digest magazines. You could still buy at the supermarket. Very fun, very like lots of levity, very, just lighthearted subject, right? Then you throw in a zombie apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
and you add the two together. And then there's another one for that, like because they did several, and one I think Betty and Betty, yeah, Betty ends up becoming a vampire, and another one was a Jughead becomes a werewolf. Like they definitely covered the spectrum of like different, the horror tropes, the horror, classic horror stuff, and just incorporated that into it. And it was they're interesting reads. It adds like you're expecting that funness from the Archie comics, but you're getting like the very like horror is introduced into this bright universe, which is the Archie Riverdale universe, and it just makes for a really interesting read.
Well, looking at some of the stuff, particularly now with some of the Archie books, are actually pretty. They're putting out books that are not following your standard Archie Jughead.
Right.
They have a lot of, in-depth, like, I think they were like investigation, just really in-depth books that are kind of out of the typical genre. Another thing, I don't know if you have it on your list, but a thing that is known for basically parodying everything is Mad Magazine.
I did not have that on that.
I got one.
Man, now that I think about it, I should have had that on there.
But they've always, across the board, they've hit every subject. So
they absolutely did, and definitely anytime it came around the seasonal stuff, Mad Magazine cracked. They would parody any horror movie, just definitely adding some fun and levity to what would have been a I don't want to say scary, because some people it's scary, but more a darker theme, right?
Grim.
Yeah, grim theme. Alrighty. I mean, I've got several. I mean, if you guys really want to go through the list, but
sure. Sure, let's hear what you got.
All right, Something's Killing the Children.
Mm-hmm.
I love that book.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of comics anyway. I'm a huge fan of stories outside the box, right? So Marvel, X-Men, Marvel Mutants and whatnot. Yeah, okay. Like I grew up on that. Every one of us has. But man, something is killing the children. There is something in the woods literally ripping children apart. And if I understand reading the story correctly, only the children and select people can see them. So there's this group organization that becomes another book later, a House of Slaughter. But one of them, it comes to not necessarily save. She's not save people. She is there to save people, but more she's there to get rid of the monsters, right? And you kind of hint at them throughout the first issue until the very end, and then you see the big, weird-looking monster and whatnot, and just gore and blood everywhere. The levity, and if it's levity in that, the parody to me in that is more her personality, her attitude to everything, as opposed to like anything comedic or anything in that regard. Because yes, that's such a great book.
Huh.
That's
Is
one
that
of them
going on?
Yeah.
Also, I think House of Slaughter is still coming. House of Slaughter is a spinoff of it, talking about like going more into detail about like the society, the group that is going after it, more about like internal politics involving in the group and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I haven't really read it. I think I read the first couple issues. I have that one.
This is the Spot UV one.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, it is current. These are brand new, and they just did this one, which is I think it's a one shot. Love the Jenny Frenson covers.
Yeah.
A monster walks into a bar. Monster Hunter walks into a bar. So yeah, there's a lot of interest still going on, still going strong.
Right. And then we have, Dracula. There's a Dracula book out.
There are
several.
a few. I mean,
Yeah.
we just had Roland just had Kelly Jones and Matt Wagner on Sunday talking about their Dracula book, but then there's also the Universal Monster series
Yes.
that has they have the Dracula books, they have Invisible Man, they have the whole line based off of the Universal Monsters. So there's a lot of those books too. So
which falls into the horror, parody theme and the things we enjoy. Or Weird War Tales from like, what was it 1970 to like, I don't even know when it ended, 80 something, I think.
Wow.
But even those, like, it was a tale, adding, a mix of two genres, two themes. You have World War II, you know what I mean? Like World War II tales and whatnot, but then you incorporate in the themes of horror and monsters and ghosts and some of that into that. Just like really kind of just meshing and like, creating like this amalgam story that, if you are interested in the horror theme of it, then yeah, that's going to be cool. If you're interested in the military theme of it, like, man, there's both best of both worlds involved in that. And
so here's a great parody. It's not a comic. Well, there's probably a comic but it's based off a book. The Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
yes, which is funny because I always laughed at that cover when I went into the bookstore
Mm-hmm.
until I watched the movie. Then I had to go and get it. But there's more than just that, right? There's what is it? Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, right? Which is an interesting one. There's something else with like Cthulhu. Gosh, there's another older book. I can't remember what I'm talking about. But there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up turning the two. I know they turned the two, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, into actual movies, which I thought were pretty interesting in and of themselves. But like, I haven't read the book for Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Sense and Sensibility. I think Sense and Sensibility is another one, but I don't remember what it's connected with. You know what I mean? Like what horror theme they merged it with. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know the Pride and Prejudice one. They're like, and it's funny because the book covers would have like Abraham Lincoln standing there all regal, and then the back of the book showed his back as he's holding a vampire head, and one hand like I think it was a bloody axe in his hand and dripping down, and then the Sense and Sensibility one had the 3 girls standing there, and then we turned them around. I think they were holding the zombie head. Like it really was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, asking questions, talking about horror parody, horror themes, horror amalgamated with other genre stories. Why do they sell?
Well, here's one that's one of my wife's favorites is Death Troopers, Star Wars Death Troopers.
Is that where there's zombies?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's a novel, right? Did that come after Red Harvest?
That came before. That was
Before Red Harvest? Okay.
Red Harvest was the prequel to it.
Right.
They were both written by Joe Schreiber, and Red Harvest is where the plague that turned them into zombies started. Yep. So it's like
that was interesting. I read that one.
But the Death Troopers was about Han Solo and Chewbacca get caught and get put on a prison barge, and then the ship rolls in, and the ship is full of infected. So now you've got all of these. I mean, the cover to the book is great. It's a stormtrooper helmet with a hook through the eye hole, and it's actually, I think, what they did the basis for the troopers in the Ahsoka show, the death. I think that started the ball rolling that went into the zombie.
See, and that's what I thought they
stormtroopers.
were. I thought they were zombie troopers in
Yeah.
Ahsoka.
Yeah. So I'm not saying there's a direct correlation with that, but that book led to that, but that was probably an influence that
Right.
So you've got those books, and then there's a new book out I haven't read, different author, with his Darth Vader Master of Evil book that looks like it's very dark, very dark. But you get things like that where you have crossovers, and things like that are very, very interesting. So, but if you read Red Harvest,
I read Red Heart.
then you definitely want to pick that one up because that one's directly tied to it.
Okay.
Same author.
Writing that down.
That author also did the Darth Maul lockup book. So, sorry, side tangent, but it taps in on
it follows
the crossover into taking people, your sci-fi people, and then kind of bringing some horror people in and all that. I mean, prior to that book, trying to get my wife to read a Star Wars book was like, oh yeah, and I watched the movie. I like the movie, but I got other things to read. She just loved that. And
That's funny because I traded books with my wife on. I don't remember what I gave her to read, but she's like, "Oh, here, read this." And it was Neil Gaiman's American Gods, the novel, and I read that cover to cover, and pretty sure. And that was, I think my son was like 5, 7, still waiting for her to finish the other book.
No, she started that. I actually got her to read Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. So
nice.
And she's kind of hooked on the new series that Disney launched, the Thrawn trilogy. She hasn't read the Ascendancy once, but so she's dabbled in it. So
right, she's dipping her toe in a little bit into something.
Yeah,
gotta respect it.
But that's what a lot of these books are, She read Death Troopers, and then when Red Harvest, she couldn't wait, and then she's like, "Well, I want another one." And Joe Schreiber just hasn't written another one of these horror themed ones. But
standing at his door, moving along. Let's get it done.
Yeah,
it doesn't work for George R.R. Martin. It's probably not going to work for him either. So.
That's the dude that Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've ever watched Z Nation, they have an episode where like this dude was collecting like zombies, like different zombie types, like because they have weird zombies, glow in the dark zombies and whatnot. One of the ones that he had was the Martin guy from Game of Thrones. They had him as a zombie, and his quirky thing was that he kept signing stuff, like even as a zombie. It was like muscle memory was just signing his thing. So the guy just kept putting books in front of him to sign. I had to rewind that. I was like, man, is that really that one dude? That's that one dude, right? Come on, that's pretty cool.
So I guess one of the questions we should ask is, are books like Morbius parodies as well?
That's a valid question. I don't know if it would necessarily fall under one of the horror parody. It is horror. It is supernatural and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean,
are we talking parody as in like it's intentionally funny?
Parody as in it's not always intended to be funny, but it's always intended to have like a slight curve to it. It could be funny, it could be ironic, it could be satirical. but not always funny.
So you're talking about something that is a different genre that is tinged with horror, or something that's horror but is tinged with something else. So, like, I think I was using this example with Tim a couple weeks ago. Like, The Killing Joke would be an example of a superhero book that's tinged with horror, or it could be considered a horror book that's kind of tinged with superhero trappings.
Well, that definitely falls under psychological horror, right? Because I mean,
yeah, I'd say so. And
what
also
the Joker put Commissioner Gordon through.
Yeah, and it's just very. I mean, art is very dark and very, very horror influenced. So,
don't let your kids read this Batman story.
Yeah. Something about the comics presentation that we were talking about was this idea that horror is a totally different beast when you're talking comics, because usually when you think horror, you think either novels where you are creating the visuals in your own mind. So an effective horror novel is one where the author is describing things that are scary, but also letting the reader kind of fill in the blanks, versus a movie where the filmmaker is using lots of techniques and showing off a certain level or skill or lack of some, when they're trying to create something that really conveys mood. So you'll have, music is a huge component of horror movies. Lighting is a huge component. Yep. But then there's comics. Comics move differently. The audience is absorbing the media in a completely different way. So you can't necessarily assume that if you took a horror movie and you did a comic around it, that it would be effective as a horror thing. But then we're talking about like the EC books from way back, where they obviously really were keyed into how to use the comic medium to create a horror vibe, and it really does require a skill that's not obvious, that is almost like really has to be kind of mastered in order to be effective.
I will say in regards to movies, right? My son's a huge horror fan, and it's funny because he doesn't always watch the horror movies. He likes to know details about them, if that makes any sense. But like, let's say he went to Halloween Horror Nights with my daughter. You know what I mean? My daughter, their cousin, and a friend. They went to Halloween Horror Nights. First adult outing on their own, right? And I've been there. My wife's been there with them when they were younger. And there's, you get the jump scare, right? Like, the jump scare is pivotal to any horror movie, any horror, you know what I mean? In regards to, like I said, movies. Be it sci-fi horror, be it periodical horror, anything really. Psychological horror, it's the jump scare, right? The whole part, like whoo, the monster comes out, like you jump in your seats. They literally created a device to put on the back of seats. I want to say it was the 60s or 70s when was it The Creeper came out? It was an old movie, and in the movie, the way you that someone was taken over by a monster or whatever was because this thing would hop onto their back and attach to their spine and jolt, right? And so in the movie, people were watching the movie at the theater, eating popcorn and whatnot, and they connected a device to the seat that they timed it when the creature jumped onto the person for the first time, the attendant seats vibrated. Right. And this was like an actual thing. I'm not sure which theater. I want to say it was like New York or whatever, but like they did it to help like push that jump scare, right? To help instigate, help give that jump scare, I guess more of like a real feel, because guaranteed popcorn spilled everywhere, drinks went everywhere, you felt your back shake. The jump scare, right? You can't necessarily mimic that in comics. You can't, turn them on, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? I feel it doesn't happen. But EC was really good about their timing. When they tell the story, their pacing, so that you had turn the page like, oh dang, you know what I mean? Not the
Yeah.
jump scare, but definitely like the surprise revelation,
Yeah.
at the end of that story. Like EC really understood timing in regards to telling those horror, stories, those macabre stories. And I don't know if that same talent is transferred over, because some of them, you expect, oh, okay, end of the first issue, last page, splash page, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost predictable.
Yeah. What's funny is, if you think about it, it makes sense why so many horror comics are anthologies. It's because you're trying to tell a story, like compare it to, like, say, a dramatic story, where you really have to have a good grasp of the characters, and you really have to have a grasp of the emotions that are carrying them this way and that, and driving them from one point to another, which means nuances of relationships and circumstances and how it all adds up to something. But then you've got horror. It's nice if you have those things, but it's not the point of horror. The point of horror is to get you with something akin to, almost like people have told me the reason I like horror movies so much probably is because I'm looking for some kind of emotional punch in the face, which is really hard to sustain if you're going to take 22 pages to develop. You'll have to, and some people can do it, like James Tinian does it with Something is Killing the Children, and and whatnot. But an anthology story, if the author understands what kind of emotion they're trying to convey, they can do it in 6 pages. They only have to do it in, like, say, 6 pages. That's typically, I think, what an anthology horror story is.
Roughly, yeah. And
Yeah.
at least the 2 I've worked on.
Yeah.
About
Okay.
6 pages.
Yeah. And I don't know. I can kind of appreciate that. A story that is very key on one thing, making you go, whoa.
Right.
And oh, kind of thing. It's hard to sustain over 22 pages. 6 pages.
The Tales from the Crypt series did that. I felt it wasn't just one story. I think each episode was like 2 or 3 stories in it. You know what I mean? And then same with the issues of the books. I have a few of those too. I'm not quite sure how I ended up with them, but somehow I ended up with some Tales from the Crypt comic.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were kind of the same thing. They gave a little story. You had, little Crypt Keeper or Elvira. I have an Elvira one too, where Elvira's telling the story. You know what I mean? Very narrating, very much like Crypt Keeper, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was it Crypt Keeper or the Vault Keeper? The Old Witch. It was the Old Witch, Dave. By the way, I looked it up. But I know there was 3. There was 3 that they did. It was the Crypt Keeper, which, funny enough, didn't look like a skeleton back in the day. There was the Vault Keeper, and there was the Old Witch. So I'm sure there was probably a couple others, but those were the ones I came across. The ones I remembered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's been using a lot of the like the broken up multi-story thing. I know Marvel's working on the Predator, the Black, White, and Blood.
Red and White, yeah.
And those are, I think there's like 3 stories or something typically in those issues. So that's pretty effective, different time frames and things like that, which are nice. I did have one that I haven't heard from you yet, Jose, and I'm interested to see if it's on your list. It's a movie, movies based off the movies, comics, Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness. That's right. I did not have it. Gosh, dang, you should have made the list.
If you're really talking about parody, comedy, all that stuff, then that's definitely needs to be one on the list. So
Yeah, Scooby Doo is on my list. Archie was on my list. I have a few others that are mostly just like older stuff. Like I said, the Weird Tales, weird War Tales. Somebody's Killing the Children. The Goon, From Hell. From Hell's on my list. But that's more horror theme mixed with semi facts. You know what I mean? Like theories and facts. Like was it factual information? Because From Hell is about Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper, yeah.
Yeah. And so it takes facts and theories. Well, like not always necessarily facts, but like these particular information that like this, it could be this dude because of this, and this, and turn that into, you know what I mean, the story. I don't think it's like 100% factual. I was pretty sure it was like
I don't think there's a lot
and then
about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, blended into a story. So
yeah.
And then you've got like where they kind of parody and throw a lot of them together, like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. That's taking a lot of a lot of English characters, like just classic characters, and combining them into one like horror story. And then I think the first one involved the tripods from
War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. You know, I've read it.
That was a trippy one. But the story was really good. And it really did, seeing and reading the way they wrote out the interaction between the characters. I think it was Alan Quartermain was in the comic, and Mina was in the comic, and it was Jekyll and Hyde. And I thought it was the Invisible Man, but no, what was that, the movie? I think one of the other characters was not the same. I believe, but yeah.
And Captain Nemo was in there, wasn't he?
Captain Nemo was in there, yeah. But Jekyll or Hyde, out of all the characters, Hyde was probably my favorite, and he wasn't anything like Hyde from the movie, right? But for me, the Hyde in the comic was I loved his character. Like, he was just the biggest jerk and just attitude, and it wasn't a shift between him and Jekyll. Like, I don't remember seeing him shift down once in the whole thing. I think he was Hyde throughout the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's been a while since I've read it, but I'm pretty sure he was Hyde throughout the whole thing. But yeah, his interaction with Mina was just, it was funny because she's like, you're gross. And then he would just make, typical snide Hyde comments to her and whatnot. And then in the end, she's like, you need to stop being this tool and, do something right for once. And then he does something with her, and then he takes off to go start going after the tripod. So it was just the interaction between them two, to me, it told a really great story. Very light on the horror, but still, how can you go wrong following like classic characters all working together? You know what I mean?
A couple other things to think of is Creature Commandos.
Which ones?
You could go back and forth. You could talk about the James Gunn modern ones, or you could talk about the original DC ones.
I love the original Creature Commandos, and when people are like, "Oh, blah blah blah, GI Robot," I was like, "Yeah, maybe." It had Frankenstein. It had Bride of Frankenstein. It had Dracula. It had they didn't call him the Creature of the Black Lagoon, but they called him the Creature. They called him something, the Merman, something like that. But it wasn't the Bride of Frankenstein. It was Medusa. Medusa was the female, main female character in it, and that the old classic was. I have quite a few of those issues because they're so much fun. And then I saw them. They came back. Came back in I think the 90s with a little more modern characters, and they had basically Dracula with this big red winged creature instead of it was really weird. I mean, still interesting, but it will never match the old creature Commandos back in the day.
And another one I'm thinking of. This is kind of a stretch. It was one of my favorite things years ago. was the use of the horror themed parody Darkstalkers game,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which was basically Street Fighter with the monsters.
I never
You
actually
had,
played it. Oh yeah, I
oh
did.
yeah,
It had more.
yeah.
Was it Morgana and the chick with the wings?
Morgan,
Yeah.
Victor, and all that. But what was and Udon is currently doing comic, basically one shots from the
Right.
Street Fighter, Mega Man, that whole Capcom universe stuff. But some of the things were really funny. Like, some of the moves with the characters. They had Anubis, the mummy, and like one of his moves is he would grab you, throw you in his coffin, throw the coffin around, and then spit you out, and all this stuff. So for me, that is kind of a true parody of,
Right.
taking the things and putting a pretty good humor on it. But they had a whole gamut. You had Talbin the wolf, you had Victor the vampire, you had Morrigan, and I think his Lilith was the other succubus that they had on
Right.
there. And then they started adding more characters, like they added BB Hood, Little Red Riding Hood, only she was a pistol packing young girl that would, so it played on a lot of the different stories. There was Merman, there was the Abominable Snowman, and all that stuff. So they kind of pulled from that whole monster resource, that kind of horror theme, and made it pretty, really lighthearted, and and went with it. But they still kept things along that. So for me, that was a big kind of parody of the horror genre that I liked, that I loved growing up. And they made
attempts at making them comic books, right?
Yeah, like I said, their Udon is still making one shots.
Okay.
Felicia, who's the cat girl, has
The cat,
been pretty popular, and Morgan obviously is definitely popular. But they've made I want to say that like at least like 5 or 6 games, including those puzzle fighter. It's like you're playing your Tetris in the middle, and then when you get big moves, then the characters fight each other, blah blah blah, stuff like that.
I have never seen that.
Yeah, me neither.
It's fun. it's it's out on, it's got games out on PS4, Switch, all that stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, and the characters are actually really popular in Japan,
right? And have been for a while.
Yeah,
it's not even like it was like a fly by night popularity, because I know there's some you'll see like cosplays for them. You know what I mean? You'll see a cosplay and then gone, right? They're gone by the next season.
Mm-hmm.
But man, like a lot of the Darkstalker costumes and cosplays and whatnot have really like gone on and existed for quite a while. You know what I mean? Like definitely the Felicia one. I remember seeing Felicia. I remember seeing the Morgan one. Mostly the girl ones, funny enough, are the ones that I've seen, right? So, but yeah. But that leads me to another point. Why do they sell? Because of familiar characters. You have like the Darkstalker video game characters that people, there's a comic book out for it. I want to pick that up. You know what I mean? There's a character drawn on the cover. I want to pick that up. You have Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing has been a classic character for, I don't even know when it came out. I think it was black and white when it first came out, if that tells you anything.
I know with House of Secrets that it.
Yeah. And anything, I feel that anything dealing with Swamp Thing, people are going to gravitate to it. It almost doesn't matter who does the artwork for it. It's not going to be Bernie Wrightson, which, classics, right? But if there's a macabre or a horror parody new story for Swamp Thing, you're going to get people jumping at it because they're familiar characters that you like. I know for one, I picked up every single one of the DC versus vampires. You know what I mean? Because it was vampire plague affecting the entire DC universe for the most part. And then there's Deceased, which is another DC version where Darkseid's antimatter equation and the other half, what was it, the life equation, or whatever, like he finally pieced it together and put it into Cyborg. And when Cyborg dropped down onto Earth, when he boom tubed it back to Earth, he connected to the the Wi-Fi, the world internet, and whatnot, and spread that virus to everybody. Right. So anytime you looked at a computer monitor, a phone monitor, you got infected with the anti-life virus. But I picked that up because it's heroes and zombies. You know what I mean? Same thing with Marvel zombies. You know what I mean? Same thing.
Well, the fact that Francisco Mattina did a lot of the covers and he just made, I mean, you're turning around and you're looking at, Wonder Woman, who's a scary monster, that brings a lot of appeal. I mean, that gets people to read the book. I mean, it's sitting up on the shelf. That's what's going to get people to give it a shot. So.
The familiar characters and, familiar subject. People, I mean, how long was Walking Dead, the comic book, running? I think it's still running, isn't it? Walking Dead running? Or is it over?
It's over, but they are reprinting them.
Right.
They started over from one and made them deluxe versions.
And then the Walking Dead series. People watched it till the end, and then they have 4 spin-offs that people are still watching. Like, it is a genre people like, the macabre, the horror of the zombie apocalypse. It is people like the macabre. I mean, that's one of my points as to why it sells so well. People love the macabre, and it doesn't even matter. I feel it doesn't matter if it's a subject you like. If you like vampires, oh man, there's a slew of vampire stories you can find. There's a slew of vampire comics. Silverline has a vampire comic book storyline. You know what I mean? Like, there's a ton of them. Silverline has, a comedy horror book. And sorry, Hefe, but I don't remember the name. But I worked on the cover for it. And I forgot the name of it. But it's stories that, I mean, we have a lot. Like, Silverline has a lot. We've tapped into that vein of interest as well. You know what I mean? And here's why. We see a Silverline. Not speaking for Hefe, but not speaking for Roland, but you see what's popular. Can Silverline get in touch with that? You know what I mean? As well. You know what I mean? And I think we can, and I think that we have, and it's because it sells. Horror parodies sell. You know what I mean? And why? Because people like to be jump scared. People love to see their familiar characters in desperate, horror situations. That's why you have, Dracula and Batman and Dracula, right? Red Rain? That's why you have, Aliens and was it Aliens in the X-Men? I think it's
Avengers.
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 That's why it's why you're bringing in those horror themes, that horror, words, genre, horror genre, and mixing it with superheroes. Because, I mean, not that we're running out of superhero stories, but let's shake it up. Let's throw something out that you wouldn't normally see. You know what I mean? That's why we have King Kong, Godzilla versus the Justice League. It's familiar entities, familiar IPs, and you're seeing them mixed together, and you're seeing how they deal with it. You know what I mean? It's why we get that with it. Like, there's medieval vampire stories. There's Victorian vampire stories, which is basically what Interview with the Vampire was, going back, telling the story of Louis and whatnot. You know what I mean? And as he goes through time, you know what I mean? We have a new series coming out, not Silverline, but like on TV. Was it Talamascan? You know what I mean? Which talks about the group that observed and documented and curated information about all the vampires in the Anne Rice universe. They were the ones that kept records and stuff like that. And so now it's a story about the group, you know what I mean, that's coming out. Like there's a lot, and people are very interested. And I think not just because of, you know, the season, not just because of Halloween season, you know what I mean, but they're even incorporating it into Thanksgiving. You have Thanksgiving, which is the dumbest movie ever to be created. And we watch it every year, my family.
Thanksgiving?
It's so, oh my gosh. Oh, heaven help us. It is this crazy puppet turkey going around killing people.
Okay. The ultimate low budget experience.
Oh, the budget on that had to have been like $37.50. It is so dumb. It is so funny, but my family and I watch it all the time, every year. You know what I mean? We go through and we go through our selectings. You have Christmas movies that have like been, you know, mixed with horror slasher stories. You have Thanksgiving movies that have as well. Obviously, Halloween stuff, the Halloween franchise that has been around. You know what I mean? I don't want to say longer than I've been alive because I'm ancient, but it's been around for a minute. I remember scaring me when I was little. So
and stuff like Krampus and things like that.
Oh man. Because people like to get scared. They like to feel that uneasy, you know, tingle up their spine. And we as comic creators, I feel that we try to emulate that in our form, you know what I mean, in what we do, you know, telling a story that, you know, the timing with the writing, you know, the pacing with the artist, and, you know, how we lay things out, the coloring. You know what I mean? Was it Mary Shelley Monster Hunter? Was a comic book done by, I'm gonna get it wrong. I want to say it's Avatar, but it's not Avatar Press or something like that. It's Avalanche, no, something like that. Starts with an A. Almost the entirety of that book is colored in red. Aftershock. I knew it was an A. Entirely done in red, like the whole thing. Like I thought that was an interesting and bold choice. But I mean, I think there's like mixes a little bit of purples in there, but like the whole, like the primary color there is red for the whole book. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I know I talk a lot, but like I said, we like to be scared. We like to see our favorite characters. How would they deal in a situation where, like, you know, they were thrown into, Army of Darkness. They were thrown into, was it Evil Dead? You know what I mean? There's a movie, was it, oh man, what was it called? Cabin in the Woods, done by Sam Raimi. And that literally, that whole story was like taking so many of the old horror tropes, like the characters in it, you knew it was a parody of like Scooby-Doo in some regard. It had the dude who played Thor in it.
Yeah.
And they were throwing monsters, merman monsters out. They were throwing bugs, spiders, like giant spiders, giant Formian ant things, you know what I mean? These tentacle creatures at them and whatnot, all to sacrifice the people that they got in to keep the world running because it appeased blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And then the movie spins that on its head a little bit, and all of a sudden, you had all these monsters loose, and it's silly. You know it is. Like, you're like, okay, dude, that's just ridiculous. But you're gonna keep watching because you're gonna see the merman grab a hold of somebody and throw somebody apart. You're going to see bugs and fire and a nightmare come after them. You know what I mean? It's you love seeing your characters do stuff, being involved, and you love you love the macabre. Everyone does. One way or another, everyone loves the macabre a little bit. Otherwise, we wouldn't stare at a traffic accident when you know what I mean, when we drive by. And I don't mean that, any disrespect, but let's be honest. If you see a train wreck when you're driving by,
Yeah.
everyone does it. Everyone likes the macabre. Alrighty, it is 12 o'clock, and we're gonna need to wrap up our show. I will add that just a little end of night housekeeping. Pops has put out a book that some of us have contributed art pieces to. It's a Ozzy tribute book, and there's a link. It's in the chat. Check it out. I did an Ozzy piece. I know a couple other people. I believe Rob Davis did a piece for it. And I'm drawing a blank because it's midnight. But click the link, check it out. If you're interested, back it. It'll be awesome. Not back it, I'm sorry. Pick it up. Like it was a lot of fun to work on. All right. Now, our end of the night. As I've been talking most of the time. Anybody got any last minute thoughts, advice, wisdom?
Nope.
I just think, people love the horror theme and whatever. They eat it up in all different forms, whether it's parody, whether it's new spins on the same stories. And one of the things that we didn't mention here was things where they will, like they did with Underworld, where they'll take existing vampire versus werewolf themes, and then they shine it up. They throw in a pretty girl and all this stuff, and make it this is an action movie and all this. But it all boils down to the fact that when you go back, these horror creations that were created well before any of us were born, the classic Frankenstein, and all of those things that came in that hit the Universal monsters and stuff like that have stood the test of time, and it's passed from parent to child, and and then from to their child to their child to their child, and all that stuff. And it's just something that has such an appeal that people like to see different versions of it, whether it be campy, or whether it be the most terrifying thing. Bring it on, make it
Right.
Scare me even more than you can. Bring it, I'm ready to go. Or whether it's the latest action movie or whatever, but it's all based off of those horror stories and all that. And you can see that throughout history, and it's just been so popular, and I don't think it'll ever dry up. It'll always be
right. It is
an
a
appeal.
perpetual well.
Yeah. And you get new writers, you get artists, obviously, you get movie makers and things who always want to bring a new spin on it and a new, their vision to it, which is interesting. Definitely brings, a lot of different things to be exposed to. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And Brent, hope you wrote down a few of those books that you haven't read. Pick them up. Like I said, The Goon. I'm not pushing The Goon for any other reason other than a great story. So make sure you catch our Wednesday Whammers tomorrow at 9 o'clock, our Silver Sunday at 8 o'clock. These are all Eastern Standard Time. And next week, Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I don't know what the subject is. I'll have to look at it again.
But you will be hosting again next week.
I will be hosting again. Yes, I will. We're in for a weird treat, as always. Alrighty. So as we say at the end of our stream and whatnot, everyone have a good evening and make mine
Silverline.
Hi, I'm Dave Dorman. Make mine Silverline.